Cool. Okay, so let's get the show on the road. Tonight, we have two successful podcasters with very different backgrounds and success factors, but unified in their commitment to content creation is second to none. Here to share their journey and insights, we have Abubakr, 1/8 of a thriving team creating the Dollar Diaries podcast, the #1 podcast for Gen Z in the UAE, discussing entrepreneurship, career and jobs, all circling back to the dollar with their unique energy and vision. And talking about one of my favorite topics, food and hospitality, we have Chef James, a TV personality, public figure, and host of the Chef JKP podcast, dedicating the last 5 years to putting long-form video back on the map with inspirational stories from the hospitality sector and securing strong collaborations with the likes of Time Out, Market Dubai, all with his charismatic energy, sense of humor, and curiosity. Let's welcome our guests for this episode, Abu and Chef James. Thank you. Welcome, gentlemen. You may speak.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you very much. First of all, thank you very much for taking the time to be here, everyone. We really, really appreciate it.
You're most welcome. Go on, Abu.
Thank you, everybody, for coming. This is amazing. Looking forward to this.
Fabulous. So I am going to get right into it because we do want to cover some really big topics, and then we want to open the floor up to the audience as well as our online audience as well. So without any further ado, let's get started. Our topic for tonight is niche podcasts. And honestly, in today's world where we've got shrinking attention spans, with a bit more of a generalist approach, I seem to find, content creation has taken a bit of a pivot of what it used to be. And I'm curious to know your insights to creating niche podcasts with a very dedicated approach, specifically within your own topics. So, Abu, you and your fellow 7 podcast hosts, which is the first podcast I've ever heard that has that many hosts that you rotate, in itself, you have a diverse guest list, and your management and your preparation, everything just is honestly second to none. So I want you to go into a little bit of that. And you've generated over 1 million YouTube views, which is already an incredible feat. So I also want to have Chef James go into your focus in terms of creating the episodes that last well over an hour. Again, something that is very unique. And I want to know how you've managed to do that for 5 years with industry leaders. So if we can start with you, please, Chef. If you can start on your journey, what inspired you to create this niche podcast? And what are your insights, your advice, your do's and don'ts?
Okay. So, it started 5 years ago during the pandemic. So I've been a chef since the age of 13. I'm 43 now. So been cooking all my life. And but as I was studying to become a chef, at the same time I studied music. So I studied music for 11 years. And of course, during the pandemic, there was a lot of things happening. And I wanted to do 2 main things with the podcasts. First of all, it was about education. So having younger chefs in the industry understand what it takes to really work hard and become the very best in the industry. At the same time, it was a sort of labor of love, the podcast, because I wanted people sort of in Europe and beyond to understand the gastronomic talents that we have in the Middle East. So I wanted to really push the boundaries about, it wasn't just all about Europe or the US or Australia. It was about, back then, what we believed and what I believe is one of the best places on earth for food. So that's why the show started originally. It's been 5 years. And again, the message of the show is always, as of hospitality, to be of service to anyone within that field. So what that means for me is that I would like to give something back to this region and to showcase the Michelin-starred chefs, the street eats. And by the way, I didn't keep it all just for chefs because otherwise it'd be boring. So it's restaurant managers, CEOs, clinical psychologists we've had on the show. And long story short, we now are global because we've actually got the show on Emirates Airlines.
Beautiful. Big round of applause for that. It's quite an achievement.
So that took a long time to set up, but it was all about, of course, with Dubai gastronomy and also with the city itself and the region, tourism is massive, and gastronomy plays a huge part of that. So that was the journey in itself. And because I'm still working like a psychotic chef, sort of 12, 18 hours a day, to do the prep for the show is not easy.
So because of that, you do have a very different structure, don't you? You make it seasonal in terms of how you're actually filming, preparing your guests and all of this. So can you go a little bit more into that? And then we're going to move into Abu and his process.
Sure. So again, because of the job and the time, so seasonally it's basically 12 shows per season. At the same time, I want to dig really deep into the heart and the history of the guest. So an average episode is 90 minutes. So I do my due diligence on the guest, and we don't stop any editing whatsoever. We talk and talk and talk. So it's my job to do all the preparation on the guest and make sure that conversation is flowing. At the same time, making them feel comfortable, because we talk about their childhood. So first of all, on my t-shirt, you'll see food is memories. And that's what we talk about. Childhood food memories, that sets the scene. Then we talk about the ups and downs, challenges of the industry. And then we finish on two sort of emotional things. Number one, funniest ever restaurant or kitchen story. And you can imagine some people have got some mental stories, really funny ones. And at the same time, the last one is, what advice would you give your 16-year-old self? And again, that really gets them sort of charged up and emotional. But it's really nice because these are people who are in super high-pressure jobs. Some of these are 3-star Michelin chefs, which means the very best in the world. So for them to be able to speak candidly and openly, it's really incredible. But at the same time, my job is to make them look, how can I put it? I want them to feel really comfortable when they're able to talk. Because some of them, as soon as you put them into the studio, they freeze.
Yeah.
Because they see all the lights, the cameras, and all that kind of stuff. So it's our job to make them feel warm and gentle, like they're having a big hug, coming home, make them feel at ease, and then we get into the show. But as I said, it's been a long labor of love, and I'm not going to stop it because I want to keep pushing the industry, and I want to keep pushing the sort of tourism part, and at the same time showcase globally what an incredible podcasting hub we are here, because it's not just about Texas, and it's not just about the UK, and so on and so forth. And look around us, we've got some phenomenal talents. So it's just about making sure that we push and push and push in every way possible.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing your story so far. Abu, if we go on to you, your dynamic is very different. Chef James is basically creating something which is him at the core of it. You have started something which you've got 7 other people and you rotate and you have that really strong commitment. Talk us through how you came up with the concept and why you chose money to be the center of it. Go through a little bit of your journey, please.
Okay, so we started a podcast 2 years ago. Actually, August 15 was our first episode, 15, 16. So technically 10 days past 2 years.
Wow.
So when we started, it was me, my best friend, like from childhood. We used to play football together, and one other person who's not here today, he's in Melbourne right now. When we started the podcast, it was very simple. We are 23-year-old kids. We're pretty stupid, and we didn't know what to do. And we knew that back of our mind, he hated his corporate job. I didn't have a job, and we wanted to figure out how to make money. We kind of started off like, hey, let's sell shoes online. Let's sell t-shirts online. And then what we figured is, okay, we don't know what to do. We have no clue. Maybe we should talk to people who knows. And that comes from when we were in university, we go to startup boot camps and all these things where the core premise is talk to the people who knows more or who know more, or your customers or your clients. So what started as like informal conversation became a podcast. And what we understood, like probably 6-7 episodes in, is that finance is a very detailed topic, right? And if you see online and if you see on the internet, there's two types of things. One is that it is very US centric because, again, no matter what we say, US is the financial capital. But the problem is that, hey, if the Fed raises the rate, what does it mean for a 23-year-old in Dubai? Like, how does my life change depending on how Fed changes the rate? So that is a big problem. And we also notice that the problem with finance content is everybody's like, buy this crypto, buy this coin, NFTs are this. Everything's about, in a colloquial sense, shilling, right? Like, it's like nobody wants to talk about the economics behind it. Nobody wants to talk about the people doing interesting things in the field of finance. And nobody wants to talk about how hard it is to become an entrepreneur, how hard it is to live as a student, live as a 9-to-5 employee, and everything revolves around money. Like, the 9-to-5 person's life revolves around the salary coming on time. The entrepreneur's life depends on how much cash flow that is there, the run rates and all these things. And for somebody like a CFO of a bank, it's a completely different ball game. They have to look at 7 sets of assets, derivatives, equity, fixed income, like areas and areas of things that some of them don't even, like, they don't even say about this, and a lot of us don't even know about it. So over a period of time, what we figured out is that, hey, the best way to understand, sort of localize the content, and the best way to kind of understand about the field of finance is to have people from diverse backgrounds talk about money, right? So whether it be a CFO talking about how they look at money at an institutional level, or we have entrepreneurs who are looking at, hey, if I do this, this is how I raised money, or here's how I'm struggling to raise money. What are the issues over here? And we talk to students who are like, hey, I have a minimum budget. I have to go to university, come back. I have to eat. I have to do all this. The prices are so high. Like, what used to be 10 dirhams chicken burger is now 15 dirhams, right? These are day-to-day things that affect them that nobody wants to talk about, right? So we found a niche over there. And when we started, it was 3 people. Then slowly people started coming in. We had friends. I was very lucky to have a lot of good friends. So they come, they see it, and they're like, hey, this is interesting. Let me also join. So what initially started as a 3-people team, it became an 8-people team. And thanks to the pressures, I have been pulled back from adding more people in. But the 8 people are luckily not like randoms. Everybody comes from a different field. So I come from a VC background. I currently work at a day job in operations. Anas comes from private equity, Ghazala from PR, Zainab in real estate. We have somebody who's a full-time freelance content creator, somebody working a 9-to-5 job he hates, and we have somebody in cybersecurity, right? So it's all across the field. And what we found in the middle is that all of these sectors are run by money, right? Like, the ultimate core is money. How much you want to run a campaign, that's money. Private equity, self-explanatory. Real estate, self-explanatory. 9-to-5 job of him hating his boss, that's about money, right? Everything's about money. So we figured out we want to kind of deep dive into this, talk to a lot of people, and figure out what's what.
So the interesting story from both of you is that with Abu, I would say you guys had a curiosity in your journey to understand how does this huge concept of money that's going to affect everyone, why is no one really talking about the nitty-gritty part of it? And I think that's where it's really interesting for me that you guys have pulled together a variety of different people to talk about the same topic. It's still a niche, and you're really approaching like the Gen Z demographic, which is really interesting. And I want to go into a little bit more about each one of you, your journey of choosing the type of content and the format that you've selected. Because, for example, Chef, you said that your average is around 90 minutes. I mean, honestly, in this day and age where everything is very TikTok friendly and it's got to be just a few seconds, if not a minute or two, going back into long form, how have you found that to be received by the general viewing public in terms of you putting out the content, putting so much effort into your preparation? What is the feedback you're getting from people watching long form? Are they actually wanting to watch all of it when you do your, performance analysis, or are they wanting that short form a little bit more?
So it's a mix of two. They definitely are. So when I first started looking at the analytics side of things, to be honest, as soon as I started pushing the long form just exploded. So people were really wanting to listen a lot more and understand the guest, because you're talking to people who wouldn't necessarily open up. And these are really sort of interesting people. So the more questions I digged into, people really were phenomenally sort of open to it. And then the audience really took off. At the same time, it's quite interesting as well, considering now we're on the flight. People are saying, well, I've got an 8-hour flight, but actually I was listening to 3 or 4 of your episodes. So that was also really nice. So people are watching it and they are listening, and also they're going back to different episodes, which was funnily enough. So whether they're in the gym, walking or whatever, or in the car, they're always listening to sort of different interviews at the same time almost. So, but yeah, I've not had any sort of issues or kickbacks or people sort of saying it's too long. No, in fact, it's the opposite. They want to do more, as in like longer than 2 hours.
Oh, wow. That's really refreshing to hear. So, okay, Abu, what is your experience in terms of long versus short form?
Right. So
For
our
Gen Z.
episodes typically go 45 to 1 hour, and that is by design, right? Like finance is not something you can explain in 60 seconds and call it a day, right? It is nitty-gritty, right? So an example is we had a CFO from an insurance company. Insurance is, if you ask me, one of the most boring things ever, right? Like nobody wants to know about like, hey, how much money will I get paid when I die, right? That's probably a very bad question to ask, right?
Nobody take any offense if you're insurance. We love you really, but yeah, boring topic.
But the problem is that you can't explain the nitty-gritties of insurance and reinsurance and how it's structured and how, if one person at top screws up, how you are going to be affected. And a good example of that is the 2008 financial crisis, right? What happened is companies like AIG and a couple of people kind of did something stupid that screwed the entire economy. We were affected because one suit and tie made a bad decision. So it is by design that we knew that long form was never going to be the biggest exploding factor. But we needed to have that conversation. So what we ended up doing is sort of a middle ground where we do the full long form and we cut it out into anywhere between 12 to 14 clips per episode. Because it's a 1 hour episode, 12 to 14 clips per day goes out, no matter what. And we've seen a huge uptick in that from there, people coming into the long form and doing it. But over the period, what we understood, which really worked, is that when we take that episode, summarize it and send it out to newsletter, that started picking up steam. So one of our biggest platforms right now is our website newsletter, which you can see all the episodes summarized and everything, like here's the points, here the points, here the points. And people tend to read that more. We have higher than global average open rates. We have a lot of subscribers and it's constantly growing. So that we've noticed is like a huge factor for us to just summarize it, send it to people.
And when you summarize it and send it to people, how do you track that they're actually clicking and watching it?
So there are UTM metrics so we use Substack. Huge fan of Substack because it's like a one-time fee. You connect your domain and it's all done. With Substack, it gives you all the emailing structure, emails, everything. If you are a little technical, you can even connect it to things like NA10 and everything. And our process is not completely, a good chunk of it is automated. So when an episode goes out, the summaries, everything, we know when it goes out to all the email lists, and we can keep a track of how many people are clicking onto that email, how long people spend, what's the engagement on the article in the website. So not only they're reading it in the email, they're coming to the website, clicking a like. Okay, for that you have to be a user. So they've gone the extra step to be a user, liked that article, and then from there on YouTube Analytics, you can see how many people came from Substack, right? So all of this data is monitored, and we've seen like Substack to be one of our biggest and possibly my favorite platform. Yeah.
Interesting. And for both of you, which platforms have you noticed you're getting more traction when you're actually uploading new episode is live now? Which one is getting more traction for you? Which platforms?
So Substack is one. YouTube, we are seeing quite a bit of it. LinkedIn is huge. Instagram, not so much. But I would say LinkedIn, YouTube, and Substack. And when we do the RSS feed with the podcast, the audio versions through Podio, we're seeing huge growth over there as well.
Interesting. And any feedback?
Look, for me, LinkedIn is definitely a good one. Instagram, really well, and YouTube. These three always kick off, and then of course the audio platforms come in.
And are you both actually finding that you're working as well on audio as you are in video, or is one winning?
For us, audio is actually doing better.
Oh, interesting.
For some reason, I can't wrap my head around it, but I get it, right? Like I travel quite a lot, right? Like my trip to office is 1 hour, trip back, get stuck in traffic, that's 7 hours. So so you do listen to a lot of audio podcasts. So I get why that audio podcast is popular, but I still can't wrap my head around the fact that my target demographic is listening to audio rather than video.
Interesting. And from my side, what I've noticed as well with both of you, the fact that you've created these very specific niche topics for your podcast, you're actually very diverse in your guest selection. And I think some people are a little bit nervous when they ask, like, so do I have to get specific about my topic, or can I just go lifestyle? Or if I'm in fitness, can I just be general fitness rather than men's health or, women over 40? What is your advice in terms of go niche or go general? What did you try going general and then go? I mean, I know your story, but would you have experienced that differently if you chose to go general? Like you would have gone, maybe cooking rather than hospitality, and then be very specific in your guest selection. What would you advise people to do?
So number one, I think the most important thing that everybody says is, of course, just be yourself. But then when you're choosing your guests, for me personally, I think I prefer to sort of have a much wider net of guests who are just not necessarily within hospitality, but because food connects everyone, same as money, it's easy for, as I said, clinical psychologists to talk about food and mental health of chefs and then link it so on and so forth. It was, a really interesting way for me to then gain a much wider audience. So I wouldn't just keep it super niche. And that's why I said I didn't want to just keep it into chefs, because otherwise it'd just be boring for them talking about chopping onions. So it has to be, niche, but also you have to, as the host, you are the one that's sort of asking the interesting questions of that specific person. So I wouldn't just keep it to your specific niche. Try. And if it doesn't work, it's okay. It's all about trial and error. So the more mistakes you make, the better podcaster you are. So I think it's really important to cast that wide net.
And how long did it take both of you to see the numbers come in? Because it's never from right off the bat. You don't have followers, don't have subscribers. I mean, you guys are a few thousand now and you're on Emirates. So in terms of like, how long did you have to, because the consistency is very strong with both of you. And I think that's number one. We've covered that in so many of the sessions we've had at PodClub. But how long did you have to wait to see the numbers start to suddenly go up?
We're still seeing it, to be honest with you. But I think it's about probably for us episode 32, right?
Oh, wow.
That's 32 weeks till we figured it out what was happening, right? And that is coming from the fact that 7 out of 8 of us have zero clue about social media. I have a private account. Everybody's private. We just talk amongst ourselves. We're not like the social media personalities. We don't have our own followings, right? So it took us a while to figure out. We're still figuring it out. We're just like every week we catch up, we go through the analytics, we figure out what's wrong, what's right. And it is a continuous learning process. But so I would imagine that if we'd never hit that 35th episode, we probably wouldn't have come to that point.
Interesting. What about you, James?
So you didn't hear it from me, but this is my first pod club. So just to let you know. So I feel very privileged to be here. But my advice is, don't underestimate consistency. It is absolutely the key thing to do. You all know the stats about podcasting. You've got if they last beyond 3, great. If they last beyond 9, amazing. You're already in the top 5%. You know what I mean? So you have to stay consistent. And in regards to the numbers, I saw it depending on the guest. And basically how hardcore the chef was, as in like 2 or 3 stars. For example, Jason Atherton, Pierre Kaufman, there were many others who were. Sometimes they took me by complete surprise. So when we had the owners of Pitfire Pizza, that podcast exploded again because they have a cult following. You know, so yeah, the numbers are still coming in, but again, because of my profession, we're always trying to push and be better and better and better.
I agree with that, right? Like we've also seen like guest specific upticks. We do make a point to bring in more people who typically don't have social media presence because we felt like that was our upsell. But when we bring in younger people, sometimes we bring in an influencer to talk to them. We bring in like somebody our age, our colleagues, our colleagues and everything. And we do see a lot more uptick than if you bring like the CFO of a company, because the CFO of a company is kind of boring. And that's
You didn't hear
just
that here. No, we didn't say CFOs are boring. But yeah, I understand. And it's interesting because from my looking into your world, both of you are very well versed in what you're doing, but you're not bringing in those guests who are huge in terms of reach. You're looking more in terms of their stories and what they need to share with you. Because what I've noticed is a lot of people will select the guests based on their reach. So if they bring in someone who's in the millions, they will select them not because of what they're going to share, but what their reach is going to be. And I think that's, again, where you guys have tweaked it to that bliss point where you're really focusing on the story. The content is key rather than their reach and their followers.
Yeah, sometimes the experience also plays a fact. So we actually have like a 70-point checklist on how we bring in a guest.
Excuse me, what?
Yeah, 70-point.
Was that 70?
Yeah, 70.
Okay, let's name them all.
What? We don't even have that much time. But 70?
Yeah, so we have it, we track it. It's like a 70 point. By now, like we've been doing this for 2 years, so we back of our mind we know what it is. But it's like a checklist to make sure like we don't bring on fluff, we don't bring on things, because again we're talking about money. The last thing we want is somebody shilling for another thing, right? So we want to be very specific about who we bring, have we vetted them, and we make sure we have a conversation with them before they even come and shoot. So we make sure that it's clear expectations are set that, hey, we probably shouldn't talk about that. We probably shouldn't do this. Because when it comes to finance, unlike cooking, like chef can say like, hey, you put eggs and this and that, you're going to have a tasty dish. And if it's not tasty, you're not going to sue him. But if I give bad financial advice, I'll be pretty gone. Yeah. So it is very important for us to say that, hey, these are the expectations. This is what we want to talk about. And we are very clear so that we don't spread misinformation, give wrong information, and, you know, say something that we don't endorse.
You don't want to be sued, basically. Good move. So, moving on.
There's a checklist with him,
Okay, can you share that checklist if you're okay with that on our WhatsApp group? Because that, to me, honestly, I know that there is a few points that people want to take into consideration, but 70 is astonishing. I mean, well done to you guys for even coming up with 70 things to put on a checklist. But that would be genius to just, if you can share that, that'd be brilliant. Moving on to another point, which has always been covered in our sessions, is monetization, which covers sponsorship, collaborations, partnerships. And I like the dynamic between both of you because for Dollar Diaries, you've just started on the sponsorship journey. And again, within 2 years, your consistent level of production and quality in terms of your content has allowed you to enter that sponsorship side. And with you, James, I've noticed that obviously not only with the timeout market, but also with your Emirates and all these different collaborations you've brought in, I'd really be wanting to know, how did you embark on that? Did you search for them? Did they find you? How did those conversations happen?
So it was completely accidental, first of all. The first 2 seasons, I did everything for the show. So edited, cut, all of that kind of stuff. And then people were surprised that it was still going. So then the 3rd season, Gulf Food came up to me and said, we'd like to do a show with you. So we did that, got bigger guests on the show. And then it sort of started rolling in from there. We've had sort of varied sponsors on the show. And because it's seasonal, one of the best sort of pieces of advice I received regarding sponsorship is that when you're doing a deck, give them a buffet. You literally give them a buffet. So they have, you know, A, B, C, D package, and then you let them choose. So that's the way I've done it. And it started to progress more and more and more. And then to the point that, we've had, you know, global brands, for example, like Valrhona, sponsor the show, and we actually did with Podster. We did a live show at the Louvre, Abu Dhabi, to celebrate 100 years of Valrhona. Then the current season that we're in now, we have done Time Out Market Dubai live shows. So we did 12 shows. So every Sunday we recorded 4 interviews back to back, and then each interview became an episode in itself. So, and we're about to record season 11 with another large sort of sponsor. But it was because they trusted the brand, they trusted the podcast, and they could see why it was beneficial. So again, nobody talks about consistency, but that is the absolute key, and trust. That's all I can say.
Nice. And Abu, for you, I know that you guys have put together something really special that you're going to share with the WhatsApp community that we've got. So go into a little bit about that and how you put it together and what you guys are doing.
Right. So as you know, we talk about money, so it doesn't make sense to like do everything haphazard. So we've spent quite a lot of time, like me and Anas literally sat in a room. We went through like 8 different rate cards, and like we went through like biggest companies, small media companies, and all different rate cards. And we kind of figured out what our average rate should be, right? Give or take. Like it's a very baseline number. You do plus minus from that. It's completely up to negotiation, right? So we put up like a small calculator, which I'll share around after that, completely free. Have a play at it. It's again probably not the perfect number, precise number, but it's just a baseline based on 20 plus rate cards that were floating around. Now, in terms of other things, in terms of sponsorship and things, we put a deck together, we're sending it out. Ultimately, what we're looking at is collecting data. We want to be able to see, hey, has a person seen the deck? How long they're spending on the deck? Which slide they're interested in? So we've come to a point where we have data on how much time, like in minutes, is spent on each slide. And we're going back and seeing like, why are they spending too much? Like, I think like the most viewed slide on our deck is like the team slide. And we're still trying to figure out why are they spending so much time on the team? Is it that surprising?
Because you have so many of you. That's probably why.
Yeah. And Anas has made a point to put so many logos there. So I think there is that going on as well. So it is an interesting process. We were lucky enough to partner with companies like Shure and things as a test bed to see what can we push it for. And I think like we've collaborated with companies like local startups and everything. And I think the story that we say is kind of important. We're scrappy, we're agile, we move. And that is a story that resonates with a lot of startups. So even when we send a deck, unlike Chef's methodology over here, we don't send out a package. We just say, hey, this is our story. This is what we do, why we're doing. We even send like, I think our second slide is like, hey, the UAE market's like $400 million worth of market. It's growing at 35% annually. And, you know, listenership's going by 63, like a full statistics slide. And we do it like a business presentation. Like, hey, these are the stats. This is why we want what we are trying to do. And if you join us now, we can grow together 35% year on year. But if you join us later, you're going to have to pay a higher price. So that is the sales pitch. And we look at like, we haven't figured out like, hey, these are the sponsor types. These are this, these are these. Because we figured out like a company like Shure has different needs than like, as compared to a company that is a financial service company. So how we pitch their service is going to be completely different. So it did not make sense for us to be like, hey, this is the package, this is the package, this is the package. Rather, hey, the deck is step 1, step 2 is we meet, step 3, we shake hands and we figure it out, right? So that's the process so far.
Interesting. So we're going to look forward to receiving that file on the group. So that's going to be really useful to a lot of people, because one of the conversations that is normally what is being shared here is, what do we do in terms of getting our brand out there? How do we get ourselves in front of the potential sponsors? And what do we send them? You know, so the fact that you've gone through that process, thank you so much for helping a lot of people out there. And it's going to be really invaluable to most people who don't even understand what information is required and where they can position themselves. And of course, with you as well, James, I really think that what you've achieved in even 5 years, it's quite, you've hit massive milestones. And I think at the same time, the fact that you've been able to position yourself and you've done a lot of live shows, which again is pushing the boundaries, because a lot of people just stay in the studio, you've actually taken the studio out there. And again, that as a concept, I think is a really interesting one that a lot of people haven't thought about. They just think, let's get into a studio, do some edits and get on with it. I just love the fact that both of you have really pushed yourselves to experience different things. And I think that's probably why within the space of 5 years and 2 years, you're really kind of getting the brand out there, and the sponsorships are going to flood in, especially with you guys as, you know, what you're creating. Moving on to the last point before we give it over to the audience. If you were able to go back 5 years ago and you 2 years ago, what would you have told yourself back then to do that you wish you had told, someone had told you back then?
Come to Podster.
Okay,
I was just saying to Abubakr, the one thing that I hate to do, but I have to do, is listen to my first episode.
Oh, that's awful.
It's
isn't
painful,
it? I know,
team.
it's
It's
bad.
painful.
So bad.
It's painful, but you have to do it to analyze where you've got to. You know, so I think I would have probably gotten a bit more advice, but you know, it is what it is, and I'm happy where we are. So
I mean, you went through the journey of doing everything yourself, like you said, for the first couple of seasons. So if you were able to go back, and it's not the cheapest thing to do, to go into like full production at a studio, would you really have spent an entire season to actually get it up and running, doing it not in-house, but paying someone to do it? Like, would you have saved to do it, or how would you have done it?
well, chefs are control freaks, right? So I would have liked to have got some real sort of advice from the technical angle of that, but that's what I would have wanted to get a bit more, because what's really amazing is that you've got a community like this where we're constantly asking each other for help and advice, and there wasn't that.
Correct.
Unfortunately 5 years ago. So that would have been something invaluable, I feel, that would have really added to me doing that show.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing. Abu?
2 years ago, probably not much. I'm very happy with what I have right now. So it's all worked out very well. But yeah.
What a wise answer.
But I would imagine, right? So when we started, we were 23. We were broke. I was unemployed. So it was like the last thing we had money for is to book a studio session and like sit there, right? So we had to learn how to do everything scrappy, everything on ourselves. So that included getting cameras from your dad, getting camera mics from your mom, like, you know, the entire thing. So I literally went like a sort of like a storeroom diving of sorts to figure out. My dad has like these 3 crappy mics and there's one camera that he's bought once and never used again. We brought that in. So everything was kind of crap. Like if you go see our first episode, you'll see there's an audio delay, like the video's playing and the audio's going back. And we still have it up because we're proud of it. Like this is where we started from and this is where we are today.
Nice.
And it's like, and since day one, we had this one philosophy. It's like we do everything on our own. We learn how to do it. We figure out how to do it before we outsource it. And that kind of comes in like 2 reasons why we do it. One, we know how to value effort. And that's kind of important because a lot of people don't know how to value effort. They think like video editing's easy. You just throw a little bit of money, it gets done. Nobody knows the labor that goes into it. So we wanted to know how to value things. And the second thing is, if the editor's out sick, if somebody's out sick, if somebody's out, somebody's on vacation, doesn't matter. I can still sit there and do the edits myself, right? And that's the level of confidence we needed. And the fact that we had scrappy equipments, we move around, we don't have a set studio. The fact that is that if our venue sponsor says, hey, we're having a cleanup today, we can't have it, we can move, do the podcast anywhere, 0 interruptions whatsoever. So the confidence to do that was very important, and the fact that we were keeping it under budget. So when we started the podcast, we actually have an accounting software to keep a track of how much we spend, how much is in assets, how much is it in expenses, everything. And if we started with like doing studio session from day one, we would have spent anywhere between 40 to 50,000 dirhams more, which considering that now we own all our equipments, we have our equipment, we get to shoot, the freedom and everything, that's probably one of the biggest reasons why we are even able to do this consistently. The fact that we could go on to now, 70 episodes? Wow. Is that because we could keep it under budget and we can keep it under control. And I'm not a chef, but a control freak as well. So even though we have an editor who probably hates me right now, everything is like tiny, tiny notes. Hey, lower thirds is not right. I think you can increase it by 5 pixels, right? Like that amount of detail we can go through because we know what it is and we don't ask unreasonable things.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. So now I'm going to hand over to the audience for their Q&A. And Marwan, if I can ask, is Beth able to come on screen? No. Okay. I will reach out to her as well and ask it, because we are running this online. So we will check and see if there's any questions coming from online audience that we can interact. But I am going to put it out to the audience. So we've got approximately another 15 minutes that we can give in this conversation before we wrap up. Any questions from our audience? If you're shy right now, I'm not even going to come to you. So take the moment, seize it. Okay, we've got 1, 2. I'm going to be super lazy and start with Hamad, who's sitting right next to me. If you just start with your name, I know I've said it, but the rest of you, if you start with your name and your question and just then wait for the answer.
Please stand up. Right. My name is Hamad Mustafa. I host the Infinite Perspective podcast and the Hamad Mustafa podcast. I want to ask this to Abu specifically. So you're doing a niche podcast. What I did was I was not very courageous, so I decided to start a podcast that's very general, broad, just like, Joe Rogan. You can pretty much talk about anything. And so if something doesn't work, then there's always another topic you can talk about. If like finance isn't working, you can talk about true crime or something, whatever. But you have a niche podcast and it's working out great. If you had to scale to 1 million subscribers with the niche that you're doing right now, in the fastest time possible, let's say within a year, how would you go about doing it?
Amazing. Okay, so couple of things, right? One, yes, we are a niche podcast, but doesn't mean we stop experimenting. So one, it's a labor of love. Like, we really care about this topic. We want to talk about this topic. That's A. The second thing is we still experiment. So if you see our latest episode, we had a numerologist on to do a reading on Anas, which is wild. But we experiment, we try different things. So if you ask me what's the easiest way to do it, is we would have had influencers with huge accounts. We would have had influencers with medium accounts. And we would have just collaborated our way through it, which is not a bad thing to do. It's just that it felt like it didn't add the diversity. Now and then we have influencers who collaborate with us and things, but it just to add diversity to make sure that the content's relevant, content's diverse, and we get to the nitty-gritties of things. So if my focus was to grow to 1 million, it would have been collaborate.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Dr. Gloria. I host Negotiation Mastery with Dr. Gloria. My question is very simple and straightforward. It's to both of you. You said you use LinkedIn as one of your major outlets, and you both have really long podcasts. So do you do the short ones, or do you do the whole 90 minutes for you? Is that how you do it on LinkedIn?
For us, we do 3 clips on LinkedIn for every episode. When a guest comes and shoot, we tag them, we put a summary points of what all we're talking, and catch up and wait for it. We tease it a little bit, which does wonders for us because it not only taps into our network, but whoever we tag goes into their network, and some C-suites, it does wonders for us. And then when an episode comes out, 3 reels go out after that, but we also post the episode link and say hey, there's a new episode, these are the summary points, here's how you see it and everything, which typically doesn't do as well, but the reels do well, and the post with the picture, a group picture with the guest and us, that typically does really good.
So for me, what I do is 1 full week is dedicated to the guest on LinkedIn or any social media platform. So Monday is a reel, Tuesday is a reel, Wednesday is a reel. So all 3 teasers. When the episode comes out is a Thursday. So that's basically like a still of the guest. And then on the Friday, it's basically the guest saying, hi guys, my name is such and such. Please make sure you follow, share and subscribe. But there's always the links to the show. And that always works because the guest and their network is sharing it far and wide, and that really works. So that's what I would advise you to do on LinkedIn and on Instagram.
So it's not the whole show, it's just
No. So it's just the reels, and the reels again from a social media guy who I know really well. He says that the maximum is 25 seconds a reel. 25 seconds max. And then if you can make it shorter, even better. But then always the links to the show.
All right, so I'd love to ask Chef James a question. Is it working? All right, cool. Because you and I share something that I find very nice. I also work in hospitality / F&B industry. And I do find quite hard sometimes for us as a company to find great partnerships, you know. So I've come to know today that you guys, I mean, your podcast specifically works with Emirates Airlines, right? Which is a big deal. That's impressive. So my question for you is, do you have any sort of strategy when you are finding for partners to work with? So what do you do in that sense?
It's a great question. So because I'm sort of based around sort of food and hospitality, the natural way would be to go with those sorts of companies. So in the beginning, we were going with a lot of different people, knife suppliers, uniform suppliers, things like this, first of all. And then it just ended up getting bigger. The Emirates thing was accidental, but we worked on it for 18 months. Wow. So it was a long thing that we were doing. But again, it was gaining the trust to be able to put the show on a platform like that. But again, depending on your niche, and if it's F&B, then you have a million things. There's 16,000 restaurants just in Dubai. And there are a million other sort of things happening around. So you've got distributors who have got a much bigger amount of money than the suppliers. So there's lots of different ways that you go around it.
Thank you.
I just want to ask one small thing for Chef James and for Abubakr as well. Do you post on your personal LinkedIn, or do you have a dedicated page for your podcast?
For me, it's personal LinkedIn.
Okay.
Yeah, for me, it's we have a dedicated LinkedIn page. So I think until like 6 months. Hello? Yeah, until 6 months ago, I didn't even share it on my LinkedIn profile. It was just organically just going through. Yeah.
Thank you.
We have actually 2 questions that have come in from the online community. I'm going to give you question for Chef James. Looking ahead, what excites you most? Actually, this is from my sister. Oh, hi, Naz. Thank you for tuning in. What excites you? We're a foodie family, so there you go. What excites you most about where your podcast is heading in the niche that you're championing, as in what's cooking next?
What's cooking next? What a lovely question. So what I'm most excited about generally is what I intended for the show to do, which is spread the word of gastronomy within the Middle East, but take it to a much wider audience, as I said, to all of Europe, to the US, to Australia. That is the thing that excites me the most. It's not necessarily about, sponsors and money and so on and so forth. That's amazing. But I really want, since I landed here, genuinely, I love where we are. We are spoiled, whether it's street food or Michelin-starred food, or simply being able to share a meal with 40 different cultures, and to be able to discuss that openly, I think is an absolute gift. So that, for me, is what is really exciting, to be able to bring our message and push it and push it and push it, because no longer do sort of Michelin-starred chefs come here. We're pushing all of our talents across the globe. And I think it should be the same thing when it comes to the podcast. The industry that we have here, I think, is absolutely phenomenal, and it's growing and growing and growing. And there's no reason why we cannot achieve those heights. Since, we all know what's going on in, as I said, Texas and all of those sorts of areas where they seem to be a hub. But we have the skills and the talents here to do the same.
Beautiful. I love that. We have another question. Is it better to start small but with a super engaged audience, or aim for a broader reach from the beginning? I don't know if either one of you have tried that, or you just started niche from the beginning.
We've tried small, and that's worked so far. I don't think we'll be able to broaden it
Go
up.
big.
Like, I think starting small, like, I think again, like we have like a presentation from like day one, which I can show, right? Day one, it was like, get 2 people to just tune in regularly. It doesn't matter. 2 people, that's it. We don't, like, hundreds will come slowly. We all understood that it was a long game. We knew that we weren't going to be overnight success. Again, none of us come from like a background with like a lot of followings and things. So we knew it was going to be a long game. And if 2 people tune in regularly and watch the entire thing, that's a success, right? That 2 people can get that full value of the podcast and the conversation. That's a success. And that's been our mantra since day one.
See, again, in the concept of that's so refreshing, because people generally want to focus on new viewers, new listeners, and you're actually more about retention. Again, I love that, because I think in the marketing world, one of the biggest mistakes, I have a marketing agency, so I've noticed that clients are always about, I want more footfall, I want new people to come in, I need more brand exposure. And I always remind them, what about your existing client base? Please look after them. So the fact that you're actually focusing on retention
I
is
would
remarkable.
imagine
Well
it's
done.
like a two-way problem, right? So I work in a company where we run marketing campaigns and stuff, and for them it becomes like a funnel problem, right? Like, how many people are you bringing top of the
Right.
funnel, and how many people are going to convert? So your conventional knowledge is that the more people on your top of the funnel, even if your conversion rate's low, the quantity makes up for it, is the conventional wisdom, right? But the problem is that unlike a marketing campaign that's trying to sell you a service, content is different. Content is for long retention and everything. It's not about how many people click, how many people give you email, and how many people you can sell to. Like, I don't have a sales guy in my like in our podcast team calling everybody and be like, hey, did you watch our latest episode? That doesn't happen, right? It's not a company. So it's a two-way thing. Like, when you're looking at from an organization perspective, I understand why people do numbers, but from a content perspective, it doesn't make sense.
I know you're right, but again, we've had experts who have sat here and told us about the metrics and how much you have to look at that and do the analysis. And again, I second what you're saying. Content is really important, because that is going to be the key to your success. If you focus on the content, both of you are really consistently putting out quality content, that's going to win in the long haul, I think. And this is a long game, like you said. I 100% agree. So if we're going to put it to 2 more questions, I'm going to have to give you the mic. And if you just start with your name and... Thank you so much.
Hi, my name is Samir. I just wanted to understand how much time, in a sense, like for each episode, how many man hours do you spend, and how much money is incurred for each episode, like both of you?
So for us, on a time basis, what we do is we do in-depth research. We compile a 3-page dossier per guest with their background, where they went to school, if we can find their mom's account, all of these things, right? We've actually had somebody where we actually found this guest's dad's shell company in the Cayman Islands and their names in the Panama Papers. So we go do a detailed research about everybody before we even bring them on. And so that takes quite a lot of time. That is a labor intensive task. We have a conversation with them. So we spend anywhere between 5 to 7 hours just on the pre-production. The production's about 2 hours. We slot 2 hours with our guests. And post-production is we send it to an editor right now. So the editor gives us first draft. We take the full length of podcast to review, find reels, find clips. So that's about another 2-hour process. And in terms of the costing, we do a lot of things in-house. So we don't rent a studio. We have sponsors who give us venue for us. The equipment's all rented. So I think, I actually don't remember how much we pay for our editors, because Anas pays it. So I'll probably, yeah.
So, and how much specifically do you spend on preparing, like, for example, the questionnaire, or whatever, like the topic, how broad it should be, like the preparation?
As in hours?
Yeah, in hours, yeah.
Anywhere between 5 to 7 hours. Yeah.
So, can you add as well, like from your experience?
So for the prep time for the guest, I would say exactly the same. You need to stalk the guest. You need to know absolutely everything, because at no point should the guest, should you have a lull when you're talking to that guest. You need to know absolutely everything about them way before they come in. It's really, really important, because it's absolutely your job as the interviewer or the podcaster to know everything about them to ensure that it's entertaining, not just for your guest, but also for the people watching or listening. So that 5 to 7 hours is absolute key.
I'm curious. Oh, sit down there. Sorry. I'm curious about podcast growth because I was very interested. Abubakr, I think you guys didn't have social media following, so you didn't have huge platforms. I'm not sure. I can't remember if you had a big platform or not. But podcast burnouts is a big thing. So there's like a ton of different growth things. If you had to narrow it down to like one thing you did that had the biggest impact on growth, was it SEO? Was it big guest collaborations? What do you think, like if we had to focus our time and energy on one place, would be the most useful?
Consistency.
So for us, we have it systemized. So we have sort of like a designed CRM sort of situation where each guest, everything's there. We have like a Kanban board of which each of these are there, how many people we shoot. So we shoot on weekends only because we all have like a 9-to-5 job. So what we do is Saturday we shoot. Instead of shooting one episode, we set up the camera. Setup takes 2 hours. Pack up takes another 2 hours. So if you're setting up and packing up 2 hours, we might as well fill as many shoots as possible. So on a Saturday, we do anywhere between 2 to 4 shoots back to back. And that's where the 8-7 people rotating cast comes handy. So we do 4 episodes. That's 4 weeks content filled. So we are currently on a break right now till December because we have content till end of December already shot and in various processes. So combine, I would imagine that helps. A lot of the process is automated. So when we upload the episode to WeTransfer, automatically goes to the editor. We know everybody has like a sort of like a roles that, what is it? Like a matrix, as in you do this, you do this, you do this, you do this, I do this. Everything goes. So it's been like, it's almost a well-oiled machine at this point. If an episode there, everybody knows what has to be done for the episode to go out in a particular week.
So you have a great system, but I'm still curious, like if there was a thing you noticed that you did that brought a lot of growth, like did you optimize? Maybe there isn't. Maybe it was just you had a great show and it was very consistent. Trying to glean some secrets here.
All right. So for us, we went back and we saw why a reel doesn't work. So a great testing point for us was YouTube Shorts, because unlike Instagram, like we saw that YouTube Shorts gave more insights. So we knew like initially if we posted 3 clips, how many people stayed on, how many people swiped. And that was like a metric for us. What we also noticed recently is the trial reels on Instagram's really good because it sends out to people who are out of your following. And that becomes a success factor of whether this reel's a lull or this reel's really good. So that helps. But YouTube Shorts, we found out to be the biggest thing. So I'm not ashamed to say this, but we use Opus clips, right? We use Opus clips, 14 clips go out every day on YouTube, no matter what. And we saw like, just in last month, like we saw like a 414% growth. And that is the real number because I have it noted down in my piece of paper that I've prepared.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
Yeah, of course. Can we get the mic to Hanan?
Just adding to what you're saying, with insights, 2 days ago, Instagram did exactly what YouTube did on the Reels. You can now see exactly where your audience actually likes, when did they share, when is the peak time where they watched. If you're like doing automating like comments or whatever, we do this all the time. So you can see when they wrote down like the automation. You can see when they tuned out. Like it's really good. They did it on the carousels and they did it on the Reels. This was just 2 days ago. The insights are insane. I can show you.
But this is exactly the kind of information that you want to hear, because from my side, I think consistency and focusing on creating the content is the first part of the formula that you really need to get right. The second part is the analysis. Honestly, the performance analysis is going to enable you to get better. And if you're not interested to get better, I would say quit. Because this is the kind of thing that you need. If you really love what you're doing and you want to really perfect your craft, that means you really actually genuinely have a passion for it. And then you want to evolve and develop and get better. Nothing to do with your competitors. I wouldn't really focus on them. I would focus on your own development and growth. So performance analysis, looking at the numbers, getting to know what the platforms are putting out there in terms of new features available, it's always there's a competition on the platforms because they want to retain you, right? So in terms of when YouTube Shorts came out, I was like, dear God, another thing that we have to now start producing. But the software that is available, you just have to put it in there, put a different dimension, and it'll give it to you. Opus Clip, there's so many other platforms out there that can generate this. I strongly would suggest go against doing AI generated content at early stage. But if you find it's easier, you can integrate it. But I wouldn't rely on that. But using platforms, resources, features that are available will make your life easier. So if you're looking for growth, look internally. I know this is probably not the best answer you want to have, but it's better to look at what you can do through the analysis. What kind of content you're putting out there? Is it getting well received? Engage. Things like mini chat. Simple thing to do, but it's a really easy one that you get people to engage. Comment whatever it is, the guest name or episode, whatever, and we'll send you the link. These kind of things will help with your engagement, which will help with your growth. Because you can start developing your own community for your podcast. So many things you can do, but only if you really want to grow. That's what I would say.
Just to add on to it, right? Like the other thing is like YouTube Shorts, I would consider is like sort of like the free market experiment of sorts, right? Because on Instagram, if you bombard with 14 posts, all of your followers are going to be really annoyed. But YouTube Shorts is not like that. When you go on YouTube subscriber feed, it's long form. Then there's a small tab for short form, then long form. You click a video, there's long form suggestion, a tab for short form. So for you to actually show there is something there. So I would say like YouTube's like one of my favorite places to experiment because that is the free market experiment. You throw 14 contents, one of them's definitely getting a 0, but the other one's going to get like a really good number of views like this thing. That's one thing. So if you're really interested in growth, yes. But if you ask me personally, if you tell me that my podcast is not going to grow, my podcast is going to grow at 0% for the next foreseeable future, I would still do it because the type of people we get to engage with, we won't get to engage with. Like a funny anecdote is today morning at the gym, where I go to the gym suddenly, is that like I met one of our guests there and he's like a CFO of Deutsche Bank. And if I saw him in the gym, I would have had zero clue he was the CFO at Deutsche Bank. But today we saw, hi, hello, spent 10 minutes talking. And it's like, like the number of people we got to know from hosting this podcast is massive. So a selfish reason for me to run it is because of how much people we get to do. And it's also like, we are all busy people, right? For me, that Saturday where we meet is my excuse to meet my 7 best friends. And like that doesn't come from anywhere else. Like I always like, I call Anas doesn't pick my calls.
It's my calls, but anyway, we're not going to get into the debate there. Do we have any other questions before we wrap up? Gayu? Okay, can we get the mic to her? Because no one's going to hear. No, but we need to be able to do it on the recording.
You both spoke about consistency. And I just want to ask, you do it 4 episodes a month is what I assumed. I don't know your frequency, but does it need to be on a weekly basis to actually get the traction? Or can you even do once a month or twice a month and still help with the growth?
Are you talking about the recording or the publishing?
No, the publishing.
Right. So from both of like my day job and the podcast, what I've noticed is like algorithms, like companies like Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, they are incentivized for you to generate content, right? So the minute you stop generating content, that kind of like screws up their entire business model. The entire business model relies on you creating content. It's a very parasitic relationship of sorts, right? Because they are kind of piggy banking on your work. So when you stop posting, we've noticed that like if we go 1 week without posting, the next week's miserable. So when we do 14 pieces content a day and we miss 1 day, we see our views like dipping like immediately. And that's how the algorithms, think of it like I recently had a kitten. The kitten wants to eat all the time, right? The algorithm's kind of like a kitten. It just wants to eat. And I think like taking a break will break it.
Yeah, but that's with the short form. I'm talking about long form, like when you do a full, like a 90-minute podcast or a 45-minute. That's the kind of...
It applies for the long form as well. So I've seen like a lot of YouTube creators that I listen to, they post not just one. So I listen to this show on YouTube called Breaking Points, right? So what they do is they do a long form content and they clip each of these segments into 10 to 12 minutes, sometimes 22-minute clips, depending on how big the segment is. Now they're talking about politics and news and everything. So they segment it. So instead of posting once a day, they post anywhere between 6 to 7 times a day. And that grows, right? Like they went from 0 to nothing like very quickly because they are doing this thing. So we don't have the luxury of doing that because it's not a full-time job. But when you do that, when they post 6 to 7 times, that like shoots up drastically. And that is visible proof.
Yeah, look, for me, non-negotiable once a week. Non-negotiable. It's really, really important. And then when, as you said, when it becomes your full-time job, a lot of the big podcasts are basically publishing twice, even 3 times a week. So it just depends on you, but minimum weekly, I would advise you.
Thank you.
Any more questions? Now everybody wants to ask questions. We're going to take this first. 2 more questions, then we're done. So you guys can fight it out.
Wonderful. Hey guys, my name is Yusra Sophia, and my question is for you both. Have you ever had a guest rejecting to be in your podcast? And if so, how did you guys deal with it?
All right. So we actually have on our CRM system, we have people who've rejected us. And we just like, for us, like we have one of our teammate, Adi, he just outreaches to everybody who fits the criteria. And a good chunk of them ghost us. A good chunk of them directly say no. A good chunk of them say that, hey, I have to check with my PR team. I can't just directly say yes. A good chunk of them says like, hey, I will come on the podcast, but you cannot mention my company because that becomes a whole organization thing. So we get rejections a lot, and somebody who hasn't had a girlfriend, like rejection's pretty normal. So you get used to it.
So great question, thank you. For me, it's different. Guests are coming to me, or PR companies are coming for me to ask. But the one piece of advice that I would give you is to make sure that you have a solid media release form. So what that means is, I've had. So I'll give you a true story. I had a really big, famous chef tell a story about how he got into an argument with a supplier, had a whole bone of beef and threw it through the back window, right? And then afterwards, when we released everything, he was like, "Oh, James, can you just take that part out because I've got a sponsorship with Bentley, so they might take it away." So the point is that within your media release form, you say, you as the producer will literally keep the content and will not change it whatsoever. So that is really important because I didn't do that for the first 4 seasons of my podcast, and I had lots of guests going back and forth. Oh, can you? It's just annoying. So that's why now I've got a very watertight media release form, and that's what I would say to you.
Have you ever had somewhere that you really wanted to have, and then they kept on rejecting, they kept on trying?
Never.
Never? Okay.
Not yet.
You're too charming.
Touch wood.
So one thing that I wanted to share from the rejection point of view, right? I think there's 2 ways of looking at it, because depending on at what stage you're asking for the guest and how big of a risk you're taking early on. Okay. For my first session, my first season, I got a sponsor from the get-go with 0 subs. And I was like, okay, you're taking a chance on me. I'm taking a chance on the entire process. Let's see how it goes. Even during that process, I was going for bigger names. Granted, most of them I knew, right? So they were coming on because they know me. But there were some people who I wanted to approach in season 2 and now season 3 that I don't know. And I still don't have big numbers, but I think it's your approach. I'm not coming out in desperation of please be on my podcast, and I'm not searching for the ones with the big numbers. I'm just going based on the story, and I'm selling the story, how it's relevant to the podcast for them to be like, sure. And I'm doing the same for when I'm actually finding speakers for any of my events. So not just PodClub, but also other events that I do. Speakers and guests are the same. It's a win-win situation. Right? So if they do say, no, you're too early, and I have had that when they've said, well, I need to know who else is going to be on or what are your numbers? And I'm like, fine, I don't approach them anymore. But when they do want to, because when they see who your guests are and they're like, oh, okay, I want to be on it too, sorry. You had a chance. So I do take it in a way that if you
take it
support
personal
me,
for sure.
not personal. It's if you're not supporting a startup, it's because I believe in this concept. If you're not supporting a startup at the get-go without knowing where they're going to go, then don't be surprised if they don't look back and say, oh, you want to be part of it now. I still would say yes if you want to be on it.
Sometimes there are people that can bring so much value even though they don't have big numbers.
Thank you.
That's
And
amazing,
this is
by
it.
the way.
See,
That's
it's
what you should approach.
There
I
you
think.
go. And you have to go with a concept of rejection is, if you're going to be scared of rejection, don't even enter this game. Because it's the numbers, the people not going to watch you. That's rejection on a big scale, right? It's the people saying, oh, you're too small, I don't want to be your guest. Or it's, in terms of anything, sponsors, the list goes on. The rejection is part of life. So this is just one of those aspects you have to be okay with it. But I think genuinely it's your approach. And it's really, don't be too negative on yourself if you get a no. It's their right to say no. But I think just perfect the way or just make it better so you focus on your story, not on what you're going to get X, Y, and Z. That's for the sponsorship level because they're paying. But guests want to be part of something. And if they believe in you, they will say yes. Right? And the right guest, I honestly believe they will come and say yes. That's what I believe. So, of course.
Part of my show is negotiation mastery. So my advice for you is ask 20 people and let them say no, and then you get used to it. I ask everybody, and when they say no, I'm like, whatever. Just keep asking, keep asking, keep asking, keep asking. Get the no's.
Ask anybody and everybody.
Any and everybody who matches your goal. Just keep asking.
Yes. Love it. Yes, of course. I think they've got a mic over there because there's no way we're going to... Yeah.
My podcast is called My Rejection Story, and I started my career as a freelance journalist doing a 100 rejection challenge. So that was like within a community. Community is very important for rejection because it triggers the primal part of our brain that wants to belong. Within a community of writers, we all set this goal that we're going to get 100 rejections in the next few months for publications. We set up a spreadsheet. And that is when I learned to pitch. And I made a living off of pitching. My agency is pitching people onto podcasts or pitching guests for podcasts. And you just got to build that rejection resilience muscle. So I'm just saying, do it, start a spreadsheet, set that challenge, get those rejections.
Beautiful. Love that. Okay, I am going to wrap it up now. Is your question very short, inshallah?
Yes.
God willing? Okay, let's so.
Hi, my name is Sumit. I'm still trying to find out the blend of hospitality and sustainability. So my question is, based on what you guys have created here right now, what will you tell the future version of yourselves? Or even if you have a children, what message will you be relatable to them? Because I know that we've discussed about your 16-year-old, how will you give it advice, but what about the future? What message will you like to tell your children or to the future version of yourself?
All right. Okay, so I'm going to pitch Abubakr for any single ladies. Number one. No, sorry. Sorry. That's later. So thank you for your question. I think for me, the legacy piece that I spoke about earlier on with a gentleman here called Sam, who also does the Tasty Humans podcast, which is amazing. Awesome. It's about, again, sharing memories, sharing moments, sharing stories, whether it's on a table or dealing in casinos in money, whatever it is.
I think
it's just that human connection. Literally, that human connection is something which is incredibly vital, and we must uphold that with all of the technology and all AI and all of those sorts of things coming in. For me, that's why when I do my podcasts, doesn't matter who the guest is or the opportunities are, I have them in front of me. I do not do it online. I refuse, because the chemistry I have with that guest when they're in front of me is magic. And that's why it's really important. So that's what I would say.
So for us, it's about what you want to do is not about it's about making sure that whatever you do has value, right? It's as simple as that. The money, the following, everything comes. Sometimes it doesn't, and it's okay, right? We're in a world where things are extremely negative, right? If you really think about it, there's AI coming after your job. There are people like, every organization's run with a financial mindset. So at this point, the value add is kind of important, right? How people make decisions at the top is going to affect you all the time. And for you to be there and say that, hey, if this decision's made, this is what's going to happen. These are scenario A, scenario B. To understand that and to communicate it to the population is primarily the key. As long as that's there, no matter what changes come, AI or whatever is there, like as long as the fundamentals are there, the fundamentals are the important things. If your fundamentals are correct, a good example for it is like my sister, right? She's in IT, right? She uses ChatGPT to code, right? And the problem is that it is effective, right? It works. It's amazing, right? Beautiful tool. The problem is if you don't understand the fundamentals of it, right? If tomorrow morning you don't have ChatGPT or ChatGPT rises prices, you're screwed, right? So as long as you have the fundamentals and you communicate that fundamentals, that's all that matters.
Thank you.
So thank you guys for participating, for engaging, for sharing your questions. Thank you, Chef James, for your insights. Thank you, Abubakr, for your insights. We really do appreciate the time you've taken to not only come here and open up your journey, give us your insights, your advice, your do's and don'ts. It's really invaluable, I think, for the people who not only have a podcast, but how they can potentially pivot, but also the people who are thinking about having a podcast and what they can do. Like we said, you fast-tracked into your future self. We went back to your old, your younger self. We did the full 360 approach. But at the end of the day, the key points I think that have been shared is more about focus on your quality content, focus on consistently creating and putting it out there, and learn to do everything yourself so that you can have a full rounded spectrum of skills at your fingertips. So thank you guys for really sharing. And if you are watching this for the first time in terms of PodClub episode, please watch the rest of the content that is available to you. It's an amazing resource platform. We've been going in this for at least now, this is our 14th episode, and there is so much content out there that can help you perfect your journey or even take that leap of faith and start your podcasting journey. So thank you for watching. Make sure you tune in for more events that we're going to be putting out there as podcasts. And if you're not following us on Instagram and joining us on WhatsApp, I don't know what you're doing, but please do join us. Thank you guys again. Big round of applause for these incredible speakers. Round of applause for yourselves. And we're out. Thank you very much. That is a wrap.